Hello, today for review I've got Shanling M3X, their new affordable player that can be probably considered as an entry level. Price is $340, but currently it's one of the most affordable players with Android. And Shanling did their best to fill it with useful features. Actually, this market segment is pretty empty now because FiOS M9 is already discontinued, and the only model present here is Hybis R5S. I didn't test S version unfortunately, but its price usually $400, so we definitely need at least another player with streaming support in this affordable segment. But Shanling did what they could to overcome the minimum possibilities and provide more features. So this player is built using two ES9219 chips. It's all-in-one system on chip, including digital tonal converter and amplifier. And the usage of this system on chips allowed Shanling to achieve a really good battery lifetime. So battery here is 3400 milliamperes per hour, and it can give from 15 to 17 hours on balanced output depending on load, up to 20 hours from single-ended, usually a bit less but still pretty good figures, and more than 20 hours in the single digital tonal converter mode from single-ended output. They've added this feature here too. Also here you will get Wi-Fi with 5 GHz support, Bluetooth with all codecs, LDAC, LHDC, aptX and so on. The only drawback in terms of specs, it's Snapdragon 430 used here. It's pretty old and Android version is limited to 7.1. But in this price tier it's hard to achieve something more fancy, and it still will be a pretty reliable platform for a couple of years, I think. It has 2 GB of RAM and 32 GB of flash memory, of course extendable with micro SD cards. And today we'll have a closer look. And to finish, information about specifications, if I remember right, it's up to 240 milliwatts for 32 ohms load from balanced output, and 100 milliwatts for the single-ended output for 32 ohms load. So not power monster, but also not power shy solution, so good figures here. Package is simple, minimalistic, but as usual Shanling implemented pretty nicely. So MQA support, high resolutions, DSD, all that stuff, it's listed and printed here, so in this aspect it's good. Inside there is a main box with signature diagonal lead, and underneath we will have a player. Accessory set is really basic here, so if you need case, it's sold separately. Here we will get USB-C and data transfer cable, and here manual and screen protectors. So that's it. Unfortunately no silicone case or something like that, but it's rarely met nowadays in the stock accessory set. And additional laser case, actually pretty nicely done, will cost about $30. It's sold separately. In terms of design, it's typical Shanling, a bit closer to square shape, bit wider and shorter than usual, but it feels pretty nice and solid in hands. Made of metal. I'm pretty sure there will be some other color versions available. On the bottom there is USB-C for charging, to use it as digital tonal converter, to output digital signal, to access to the internal memory, so all that features that modern player supports. And micro SD tray, it's not super convenient, so you need to push it here and then pull here. It looks a bit fragile, but they use the same approach in their flagship M8 player too. On this side there are 3 playback control buttons. They are actually pretty clicky, so click is pretty hard and loud. And they have this shape that allows quickly find them without looking. On the top there are 3.5mm and Pentacon output, so probably we can safely say that transition to Pentacon is almost complete. And here multicolored LED indicator and volume knob. As usual, it also can be pressed to use as a power button, so it's traditional. On the back side, just plastic lid with high-res audio and high-res audio wireless logo. In general, looks pretty nice, built also pretty solidly. So summer is coming and we definitely need some small player to use in the shorts pocket or to carry somewhere on the go. Something small and lightweight. In terms of weight, it's about 170 grams. Bigger part of main screen occupied with bigger part of front panel occupied with main screen. Bezels are really narrow, so it's not absolutely bezel-less, but pretty close. It has good resolution. You can see that it has a nice brightness. It will be visible even under the bright sun, so in this aspect it's done nicely. It registers touches pretty well, so in all these aspects it's a pretty good player. So to summarize this part, accessory set is basic, but package in design and build quality are really good. In terms of firmware, it's typical Shanling's Android 7.1 with addition of their signature solution that allows applications to bypass internal resampling. There are few additions, so this application with firmware update and user guide and other stuff. In the settings, as usual, there are additional section for the audio settings. Select phone out or line out, low pass filter, gain, single-ended, single or dual chip, you can select the option you'd like. Balanced, boot volume, maximum volume, wireless playback quality you can select here, so it's a pretty good feature. And you can turn on AirPlay here. Not really logical, you just tap it and it will go into the AirPlay mode. Not really convenient, but in general not a biggest issue. Also, of course, you can control what buttons are enabled on the screen when it's locked. And there are additional settings here, so dark mode, audio settings, AirPlay, phones out. You can select Android mode or pure mode when player works as a launcher and no access to the desktop available. By default, Play Store is not available, but you can install it from APK Pure and it will work, so this part works okay. And main part, as usual, it's Shanling's own player. If you've seen some of their players, you've seen it all. And here is now playing screen, so basic big album cover, favorites, add to playlists, equalizer and additional settings. If I'll hit this, of course no, nothing is playing, so no actions for this menu. If I select something, of course pressing this button will show additional information. Also lyrics and album information. If you don't like the album cover, you can enable VU meter. Not like it makes much sense, but anyway. As usual, play order, track navigation, so all that stuff is pretty familiar for everyone. And here is main menu, library update, all songs, folders, so everything is pretty traditional here. As usual, you can select many folders for mass operations, so You know, all that stuff is familiar if you've seen some modern firmwares of players. List by albums, list by artists. So you select some artist, and then it will show songs you can view all, or albums. You can also view all albums. So they've solved the dilemma what should be in the artist, all songs or albums. Genre, high-res tracks separately, and playlists. So favorites, recently played, and of course custom playlists you can create. Wi-Fi music transfer, access to network storage, sync link. It's a tool for remote control of Shanling player. Thanks that they didn't call it Shanling link. And settings, so language, sleep timer, resume playback, should it start playback when turned on. Automatic library playback transition. Actually, to be honest, have no idea. I got it. When you select something in library, should it go to the now playing screen? Folder skip, should it go to next folder? Pause when headphones disconnect. Gain, it's replay gain. Equalizer, USB playback. HWA LHDC codec is turned on separately here. Lock screen with album information. VU meter settings if you like some color schemas. Theme black or regular, and reset media library. So settings are basic, but it's just a good, correctly working media player. It's not fastest in terms of firmware overall, but in general it works pretty nicely. So Snapdragon 430 is old, but still streaming services works nicely. Okay, works not absolutely smoothly, but at my scale it's really acceptable speed, so it's okay to use it still in the affordable devices. Nice widget, by the way. So in terms of firmware it's pretty good, but of course Shanling need to consider something better in the future albums, but I'm pretty sure they already aware about that without my advices. And of course about the sound, as earphones for example, today I will use Duno's recent electrostatic creation EST112. And you know, first it's easy to think Shanling uses here system on chip. It means that there is no op amps inside of audio circuit of this player, and what actually depends on Shanling, but they've implemented few interesting things, and it's a good example of how small nuances can change the sound. So I'm pretty sure that many manufacturers in nearest future will build their systems on that 9219 system on chip. But Shanling used here some FPGA for digital signal unpacking. Also they used some good crystal oscillators, and also some ultra fancy capacitors, and that altered the sound, and it doesn't sound like typical ESS creation. Instead of natural and bright microcontrast focused sound, you will get here typical Shanling sound with good resolution, but slightly added weight and slightly boosted emotions. So fun, engaging tuning. Actually, you know, sometimes it reminds me younger brother of M8. Of course, it's not even close in terms of that energy and emotions that M8 can add to the records, and it do, and of course it's not even close in terms of that crazy dynamics that M8 shows, but there is some similarity in overall representation. And actually, if you have M8 and thinking about some small player to use on the go, M3X could be your choice here. So bass is not accented, actually nothing is accented here. In terms of frequency response, it's absolutely natural, of course, it's just the way common players work, some accents, some manipulations with weight, and other stuff is done basically using not frequency response but some harmonics and some other complicated things. So bass is almost natural with a slight hint of added weight, but actually just a really small. It's detailed but not dry. It has good impact, it's controlled well, and actually it goes to good depths, not the maximum, but actually depth is good, it's controlled well, and to be honest, not much to say about the bass. It just plays it as it recorded without adding something or subtracting or hiding or trying to smooth or to highlight, so just low frequencies you will get at the amount as they are. And it's pretty good with natural bass. It's good with electronic music too, but if you need boosted low frequencies, you'll need to select some proper earphones. But with acoustic instruments it sounds natural, technical, with good amount of small nuances and details. And today's example, it's Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington Cottontail, just great jazz masterpiece. And here present acoustic double bass, and traditional for jazz music, it's not highlighted, not pushed forward, so many sources can easily lose it. It stays somewhere at the background and it's not articulated enough. But M3X does that, and at the same time it's not over highlighting it or pushing forward, so it stays where it should be and it's nice. Mids are a bit shifted towards warmth, towards emotions and macrodynamics. It's not trying to go into the micro contrast, it's not trying to be clinical, analytical. Detalization is pretty good, but the details are not highlighted, not pushed forward. And that means that it's pretty forgiving for the quality of records, but of course something absolutely poorly recorded will sound in a respective way, so good remasters will sound better anyway, it just won't highlight that small problems. It will add a bit of additional weight to male vocals, making them more velvety, more emotional. It will add weight to instruments, making them more embossed and more present, so it has a bit of coloration, but it's also not a big coloration, so keep that in mind, it's just a slight hint. It's less than, for example, Hybe's R5 does. And imaginary stage is above average in width and in depth, but actually just slightly above. It's not huge type of three-dimensional stage building, but still it has good depth layering and good width separation. As an example of mid frequencies, I've got Hans Zimmer live in Prague, that part of concert dedicated to the Dark Knight trilogy, and really good masterpiece of not probably classical music, it's kind of contemporary music, because besides the classical part there is a lot of rock things and other stuff put here, and it's a great masterpiece and a great test track, because there is a deep bass, there is orchestra and a lot of instruments and all that other stuff that is going on here. But of course main thing is a sense of presence in the live audience during the big concert. Of course, it's not as this player is not as great as, let's say, M8, because stage is smaller and you will lose a bit of that huge and spacious stage, but still it gives you that emotions of live concert with all that small nuances and details. And treble here is a bit softened, but actually also not big, just slightly, in order to sound not fatiguing and not too sharp. At the same time, treble has a really good extension and nice in terms of technical performance, resolving with proper attacks and decays, even with the hints of basic layering and a pretty nice overtone saturation. So nice representation of high frequencies for those who don't like sharp sound. Pretty good trade and offer, especially if you have some bright sounding headphones or earphones that you'd like to calm down a little bit. It could be a nice option here. And actually. As an example, I've got Miles Davis, yet another jazz masterpiece, Spanish K from Beach's Brew. Great instrument, great, nice record quality, and of course it requires good treble performance to show that small overtones, that small decays and nuances, and actually this player delivers that pretty nicely, so really good. I didn't expect actually such level of performance from this small player. And in terms of pairing, it can drive pretty well power-hungry cans from the balanced output. Of course, not super power-hungry cans, not super power-hungry planars, but full-size headphones, vast majority of them it drives with ease without any problems. And on the other end of the scale, sensitive in-ear monitors are not an issue for it. Background noise level is really low, sounds really nice even with really sensitive models. As for conversions, actually it's a hard situation here because there is no other models in this segment. It's just wiped out, many models outdated, out of production. Of course there are something that is sold here, some used dubs, some older models that still present on market. I don't know, like Ibasso DX120. DX120 sounds sharper, more aggressive, more focused on the micro detalization. Players of higher level, like Ibasso DX160 and Shanling's own M3X, actually they've updated it to 2020 first version. Most probably I won't test them, unfortunately, but what could I do here? So, and Fio's M11, actually it's also already out of production probably, so they a bit better in terms of naturalness, in terms of technical representation, so they are a step forward here. The only competitor, as I've said, is Hybrid's R5S. I didn't test it. Based on the other reviews, it should be more natural and more focused on the detalization, but it's just assumption. I didn't compare it. Old classical R5 is warmer with less resolution, with softer treble, so with more impact and more bass and more depth. So this one sounds more natural, more engaging and a bit more emotional. So don't remember other players in this segment, and so I can't compare. To summarize actually review and this part and review, Shanling created good player that perfectly fits into this area. If you're looking for something separate, if you're looking for separate device to use with streaming or to use with your media on the go, it's a great option. Small, good sounding, with long battery lifetime, with Android, MQA support, so all that stuff that is necessary for modern player. They just tick that boxes and they've implemented that all here. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.